Look, in theory, the finale of The Golden Bachelorette is supposed to fill your heart in the best way. In practice, though, last night's finale was a different story. This season of the show has raised some interesting questions about how reality shows vet their contestants and how they keep their stars safe. The group chat is here. Let's get into it. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, I rarely have to do this, but I gotta start this show with a bit of a heads up that if you've been watching The Golden Bachelorette for the past few weeks, and for some reason you have not watched last night's finale, the time to cover your ears is now.
We are living proof that no matter what life throws at you, that there is still hope, even at our age. I waited till this moment in this amazing location to tell you that I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was it. That was the big moment from last night's series finale of The Golden Bachelorette. That is where 61-year-old Joan Vassos chose 60-year-old Chalk Chappell to be her husband. Now, these final Rose episodes are the ones that Bachelor Nation remember and they cherish. But the vibe going into this one was a little bit off because it was recently revealed that the other finalist who's vying for Joan's affection, Guy Gansert, was slapped with a restraining order from his ex-wife a few years back. And what's hard to believe is that he's actually not even the only Golden Bachelorette contestant this season with some similar skeletons in his closet. This is also not the first time that these issues have come up on The Bachelorette now, and that is raising some questions about how these shows end up vetting the contestants and whether they're doing enough to actually keep their contestants and stars safe. So we're going to get into all of this right now with two card-carrying members of Bachelor Nation. Emil Niazi is here, Shivani Gonzalez is here. Emil, Shivani, welcome to the show, friends.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hello. Listen, Emil, I'm going to start with you. On a scale of 1 to 10, first of all, how emotionally invested were you in the outcome of this season?
Well, you know, I'm a sicko, so I always start out very invested in, especially in the Golden Bachelorettes, because I just feel like the stakes are so high for them. So I would say I started at an 8, but as the season went on, I just got more and more cynical about the whole ordeal, and I ended up around a 5. But you know, at least there are stakes in this story, and so I did have to keep watching until the end.
Like imagining you and your right reasons radar, you know, you're just kind of scanning.
I can always sniff it out when it's for the wrong reasons.
Were you happy with how it turned out?
I have to say, when Chalk, who's the winner,
great name, by the way,
showed up with his chock-a-noodle soup, when they step out of the limo, he had a very memorable first, embrace. He brought her chicken noodle soup. It's kind of his thing that he does. And I was like, oh my God, if I was a 61-year-old bachelorette, this is exactly what I would want. But I know it's very controversial that Chalk, sorry, his name is very,
yes.
very specific.
Yeah.
I know that Chalk is not necessarily a winner that everyone can rally around. It's a little bit he's got his own red flags for sure.
Listen, the red flags abound. Shivani, do you want to talk to me a little bit about this season? Because you were a longtime citizen of Bachelor Nation. But I hear this season tested your limits a little bit. Do you want to talk about why it did?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's two main reasons. So I've been watching since I was in high school. Sean Lowe's season was my first season, and I was like, this show is perfect. I'm obsessed. And I've literally watched every single show, every spinoff, everything since. And I think that Jen Tran's season of The Bachelorette, which aired this past summer, was honestly just really emotionally taxing and upsetting. And I think that a mistake people make when they think about the show and don't really know it is they're oh, you're in it for the drama, you're in it for whatever. But it's you can go to the Real Housewives for that. I do think most people who watch Bachelor want to see a happy ending. And so I think so many examples of not happy endings, specifically with Jen Trans and her fiance who ended up being horrible and broke into his girlfriend's house, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
And then, with how quickly the marriage ended for the Golden Bachelor, I just think that, it's what am I really rooting for here? I need more joy and happiness. I don't need to see sadness on my screen.
Shivani, this sounds like not just sadness, but an existential crisis in terms of the thing that you turn to this franchise for. That sounds like a deeper sort of wait a minute, the thing that I used to get out of the show, I'm not even getting out of the show.
it feels like they've lost the plot a little bit for sure.
Oh, no. Okay, I want to just lay out a bit of a timeline here. If we can just kind of like delve into the black cloud that's been hanging over this season of the Golden Bachelorette. Last month, we learned that the ex-wife of Guy Gansert filed a temporary protective order against him a few years back due to anger issues and physical threats. We also learned that the show's producers knew about this during their own vetting process. But according to some of the reports we've seen, they cleared Gansert because his ex-wife chose to dismiss that order. And then Guy Gansert recently took to Instagram to say that he and his ex arrived at his quote is a resolution that was agreeable to both parties. But then also earlier in the season, Emil, it also comes up that another Golden Bachelorette contestant, which is Gil Ramirez, had a temporary restraining order filed against him just days before the show started filming, and it too was eventually dismissed. When you sit with all of that, how does all of this sit with you as you watch this season, Emil?
I mean, this is kind of the complicated thing about the Golden series, if you will, because, you know, on the one hand, I mentioned the stakes, the more sort of emotional connection I have to these older people. When you have younger people, you know, you don't have that same sort of resonance. At least I certainly don't. But the thing is, with the older contestants, you also have, you know, 10, 20, 30 years of real life romantic experience. These are people who have had marriages, divorces, they're widows and widowers. That long life history is going to come with complicated, nuanced, and sometimes horrible pasts with their partners. And so on the one hand, I do sort of expect to have some, you know, sort of tension and upsetting sort of history with some of them. Ex-wives and ex-husbands are going to pop up, but it's very, very hard to watch someone like Joan go into this knowing she's still grieving her dead husband and then thinking she might end up with someone who, you know, could potentially harm her. Like, unfortunately, that's the reality when you're mentioning restraining orders is like, is this partner she chooses going to be someone that causes her harm? And that's really, really hard to watch, obviously.
The idea of that happening sort of back to back with the season that you mentioned, Shivani, if I can just also, I'm just going to give people maybe a bit of the background for that. So the winner of the most recent season of The Bachelorette, which is Devin Strader, he was arrested for breaking into his ex-girlfriend's apartment, hit with a restraining order in 2017. In 2018, The Bachelorette featured a contestant who had been convicted of indecent assault and battery. So like these incidents are happening a little more frequently, or at least we're sort of hearing about them a little more frequently than we were when this franchise launched. I think we've also seen that in conjunction, Shivani, with like a real push for reform in reality TV. We're talking about like including like unionization of people who end up on the shows. Do you think that kind of organizing would help maybe against some of this mess that we kind of end up in?
I think so, yeah, because I think that, again, like people see reality TV as entertainment and it's for entertainment, and it 100% is. But you also have to look at the other side, which is that this is work. Like, it is a workplace. And if you look at it in those terms, like most workplaces have background checks, you know, they're really vetting the people who are in your office, and that's to protect the company, but that's also like hopefully to protect you. So, you know, you're going to work around people you can feel safe with. And so I think that a shift towards looking at reality TV as a workplace would really benefit the people who are on it and work to protect them better, because I think this pattern, like we're saying, like has really shown that the producers are kind of dropping the ball on properly protecting their leads.
Yeah, I think look, that frame of work is, I think, really important to me because we don't often think of reality shows as work, Emil. Like, there's something about the machinery of reality shows that where we don't even want to believe that these people are at work. Like, someone is being paid to make sure that everything is running well, and like part of the responsibilities of the people who produce that workplace is also to ensure the safety of everybody who's present. What do you think it is about reality that makes us maybe forget that like these people are at work? Many people are in fact at work as we watch this in order for us to get this entertainment that we're watching.
Because we have to suspend that disbelief that this is a workplace and these are, you know, not actors, but people who are creating a fantasy. We need to believe that this is something that is going to produce a long-lasting romantic relationship. We have to believe in the fantasy. Otherwise, it really just is, you know, kind of a longer, more drawn-out soap opera. And clearly that's not what people are watching this for. And so that suspension of disbelief has to be there. And I think the more and more cynical we get towards these shows, the less we're going to watch them. And I think you can see from even the viewership of the Golden Bachelorette that maybe that is really starting to happen.
Dude, if they lost Shivani, I don't know who else they're going to lose. You know what I mean? Like that's
I know.
That's not a good
Scary.
sign. That's not a good sign. Okay, I want to get back to the Golden Bachelorette herself, Joan Vassos. She appeared on a podcast last month. She talked about this controversy surrounding Guy Gansert. Here's what she had to say.
I feel like the Golden franchise is a little bit unique because we come here with a lot of past. You know, we've lived a lot of life, and, you know, it doesn't completely surprise me that there are, you know, people do things that they're maybe not proud of. I never saw like that side of Guy or of anybody. He was so kind to me, and he was so open, and he was so vulnerable. He cried. He talked about, you know, finally feeling happy for the first time in so many years. I never in a million years, you know, would have guessed that there was any kind of past there. And I still believe that he's a really kind and good person.
Emil, what do you make of what Joan was saying there, the way that she sort of framed that answer?
Oh, I mean, my heart really goes out to her, you know, like talk about suspension of disbelief. She has to be the one that believes in the fantasy the most, right? Otherwise, no one is going to buy in. And I can hear it in her voice, just, you know, dating for that long, getting back into it after a very long, loving marriage must be really, really difficult. I know dating is hard for everyone right now. And Joan sort of speaks to that feeling of like, I have to just accept that what he tells me is true, that he is a good person. I have to believe in the connection we have. And she kind of has to bypasses some of these red flags in order to continue perpetuating that fantasy for herself and for us.
I think one thing about the Bachelor Nation sort of franchise is that Shivani's kind of become like one of the load-bearing sort of arguments for marriage, if you will. Like I think like in a moment where maybe marriage is at a bit of a crisis or more of a crisis than it's been before, you sort of watch the show and there is still this willingness to believe in this fantasy. So one thing that I can't help but think about as you sort of watch and discuss these shows is like how they affect regular viewers who are just like out there looking for companionship, out there still dating on the dating apps and what have you. Like we're still talking about a TV show where you're supposed to be able to find the perfect partner. Lots of staff, lots of resources, lawyers are involved in vetting these contestants, and there are still these cracks in the system. Shivani, how is watching this season of The Golden Bachelorette affected like your own perspective on dating in the real world, do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think it, like my whole soapbox when covering reality TV is that like it can really be a funhouse mirror to what's going on in society. And so I think that if you look at it in the world of dating and also the world of a workplace, like what does it say about our society and our workplaces that this, like you said, there's so many resources involved. It's like should be the most protected person. Like you're really vetting these contestants to make sure that she could potentially find like a perfect match. And oftentimes that doesn't include someone who has had a restraining order. And so like, what does that say about dating in the real world? And I think that it really does illuminate that. I am the only single one of a group of friends who are all like either in very serious relationships, engaged or married. And, you know, everyone's always like, get on dating apps, get on whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's good to put yourself out there. But for example, there's this Facebook page I'm a part of, and it's basically like it's women just posting like I went on a date with this guy who I met from Hinge and these were the red flags, watch out for this. And it's so it's like people are really rallying together, particularly women, to protect each other from that kind of thing. And that shows like how important it is and how necessary it is, which makes it all the more disappointing that on a show that has like so much money to be properly protecting people that they're not really prioritizing that.
Emil, got maybe like a 1 minute left here. What do you think? Are these shows a reflection of what it's like to date in the real world, do you think?
I think so. You know, I have to say I am very, very happily married. So I am always rooting for this and I'm rooting for everyone to find their partner. I know, humble brag. It's not even a humble brag. It's a straight up brag. But, you know, I see on TikTok, I see on Twitter, I read the stats about Gen Z and their relationships and what is going on with especially women and men, young men dating right now. And it feels very bleak. It feels very grim. And I hope that people can overcome some of these problems. I think in the technology, you know, the apps don't seem like a great place to meet people. And just believe in love again. I'm such a romantic at heart, and I fear that right now we are so divided and separated by so many things that it's hard to really believe in that fantasy in real life as well.
I don't know if the three of us can save dating for everybody, but you know what? I think you're both here for the right reason. So I appreciate you. Emil and Shivani, thank you for your time. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shivani Gonzalez is a TV reporter for the New York Times. Emil Niazi is a freelance culture critic for The Cut. I'm Alamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, Donald Trump's win in the American election has come with quite a bit of good news for Trump's friend and fellow billionaire, Elon Musk. For one, Tesla stock jumped dramatically. Forbes just declared Elon the richest man in the world again. And Elon just got himself a new job with the Trump administration. He did, after all, use his social media platform, X, formerly Twitter, to push a pro-Trump message. But you hear a lot of critics saying it isn't just right-wing views being amplified on the platform. It is also pushing Nazi content and bigotry and fascism. Ever since the election, users have been leaving the platform in protest. CT Jones is here to talk to me about it. CT, welcome to the show, friend. How's it going?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. One day, you'll have me on for something like the Golden Bachelor.
Yeah,
I'm really excited.
I'm happy that you're here. I'm sorry that you're here for grim reasons. Do you want to talk about?
It's fine.
Let's get into it. Let's get into X. Let's get into the changes we've seen. No one's happy to talk about X these days, but do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the changes you've seen since the election?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
I would love to. This has been my only life. Here's the thing. I don't think X has changed since the election. I think X has changed since Elon Musk bought it. One of the thing post-election that I have seen, I think we should all think about ourselves and think, why is the man who started Papa John's, who was kicked off of Twitter in 2013 for saying the N-word during a conference call and then being like, yeah, you're right, guys. That was my bad. Why is he back? Why is he back, Elamine? Is that a place where we want to be?
You're trying to say like X has been a reflection of certain values, specifically since
Correct.
Elon Musk bought it. I mean, look, he bought it 2 years ago. We know Elon Musk sort of refers to a lot of internet memes just like in daily life, which is an odd thing to do. But one of the things that he did is after he bought Twitter and turned it into X, he walked into the headquarters carrying a sink, referencing the "Let That Sink In" meme that now he owns this very powerful sort of platform. And then ever since he bought it, though, like critics have been complaining about the rise of Nazi content ever since. Let's trace a line here. How is he responsible for this? How has he changed the platform since he's took ownership of it?
Since Elon Musk has bought Twitter, and I won't say X because I just feel like it'll annoy him a little bit.
That's fair. I'm with you. Let's go.
He stripped the site of basically all of the protections it had as a social media account, right? He walked in with the sink, and then his next thought was, let's get rid of a lot of the key support staff, right? For me, as a journalist, if I want to follow up with X or Twitter for a story that I'm doing, I can email their press site, and then they won't get back to you. They don't answer comment requests anymore. They removed all of the blue checks from the site, which means that people who were verified, so you could tell, weren't being,
verified journalists, verified
journalists or verified celebrities. Instead, he introduced the premium accounts where people could pay for the blue check. And in the premium package, it includes the fact that your account can kind of be promoted at a higher level algorithmically. So what happens is all of a sudden, if there's a person, hypothetically, who wants to create an account that's spreading Nazi content, instead of going through all of the old practices of having to dodge censorship, having to dodge all of the people at Twitter who existed to make sure that harmful content didn't escape, all of a sudden, people have paid $8. They're at the top of the charts. And they're basically allowed to continue without any oversight.
Yeah, I would say like he's made a lot of one of the things that I've noticed that he's changed is, for example, if you block a person, you used to be able to not have them view your content whatsoever. He's changed even that rule so that if somebody, if you block a person, they can still see your content, but they can't interact with it, which is like it's really dangerous for a lot of people. And so like you kind of regularly hear about the safety mechanisms being kind of pared back on Twitter, and it's been really uncomfortable. So what's been happening since the election is a bunch of high-profile folks have been, and media outlets have been leaving the platform, and in protest of Elon Musk. Like they sort of say this explicitly. We're talking about like Jamie Lee Curtis, Shonda Rhimes, Whoopi Goldberg, Gigi Hadid. The Guardian just announced that they're not going to post at all on the platform. Like they're not going to post their news stories on the platform. They said X is a toxic media platform. Do you think Twitter, X, is in crisis right now?
I think that Elon Musk has created the site that he wants to see. And now people are choosing whether or not they'd like to be on it. I think if it is in crisis, it's a crisis of Musk's own making and one that he's excited to watch. I would also like to note that for these high profile folks, right, these were not the people that Elon Musk wanted there in the first place, right? So in his head, I'm sure he's not seeing this as a loss.
He's not losing sleep over Shonda Rhimes leaving the platform.
He said, wow, all of these people look like they attended the Beyonce rally for Harris. So I don't want them on my social media site.
Yeah. The thing that I've been noticing is everybody sort of talking about the alternative to Twitter, which is Blue Sky. I mean, there's a bunch of alternatives, I think, but Blue Sky has kind of like emerged as the one of choice in the sense that like it has the same style of banter, but also there's something about it that feels a little bit freer of the bots, a little bit freer of the bigotry, and there's something really nice about that. Blue Sky reported 1 million new followers in the first week since the election. Tell me a little bit about like the other platforms that are growing because of this mass exodus from Twitter.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that you see from once Elon bought the site is that there were a lot of these sites that popped up originally. Blue Sky was there. As soon as it was like Elon Musk is the new owner of Twitter, they said, hey guys, you want to come over here?
It's a little nicer over here. Yes.
It's a little nicer over here. You also have Threads, which is Instagram/Meta's attempt to kind of recreate some of the things. I think you also have Spill Sesh. I mean, there are dozens of these text-based apps that are kind of throwing their hands up and saying, hey guys, seems a little crazy over there at the site that seems to be promoting Nazis. Do you want to come over here, get the memes back?
Yeah.
Follow us.
Reestablish the nice vibes. That's at least that seems to be the pitch every time that I open Blue Sky.
It's definitely the pitch.
NBC did call Twitter a quote pro-Trump echo chamber, but then like you look at these other platforms, whether it's Blue Sky or Threads, do you read them as their own echo chambers right now?
I don't think they're actually old enough to have an echo chamber. People are still trying to figure out how to follow a Twitter user called Bald and Dowd. Like, you know what I mean? They're not worried about whether or not their, political views might being impacted by following the same people and the same group. So I think what is going to be really interesting to see going forward is whether or not this like post anti-Musk move from Twitter can kind of solidify onto a group, right? People use Twitter for work. People use Twitter to try to like talk to their friends. It's also a place where you get news from politicians. All those three feels really incompatible to be able to move over to a new site. So I think as we go to the next couple of weeks, we'll see what people are actually really interested in seeing going forward.
Yeah, first of all, Bald and Dowd is the reason I'm never leaving Twitter, just so you know. Because that account only exists there, and we're going to keep it that way. I have to keep reminding myself that it's only been a week and a half since the election, because I think we've lived 1,000 lifetimes since then. How do you see social media changing in like the few months to come?
Let's be honest. I think we love to talk about social media as a way to connect with others. Yeah. It's not. It's a marketplace. We are the products.
Go off.
We're being sold to. We are being sold. Our information is being traded. So I think if we actually want to see anything change in the next month, I think we actually have to reevaluate, let's evaluate what it's there for in the first place, or at least what we want it to be, right? People were sad about the vibe changing on Twitter because they weren't there because they could get a statement from Obama in 30 seconds. They were there because they were like, I want to see a meme in 14 seconds on my way to work, right? So for going forward, they're not looking for another site to replicate the way to hear all of these things. They're like, I want a place where I could hear what Katy Perry is having for breakfast. I can talk about albums, and maybe I don't have to watch fascism develop in front of my face.
It's, in fact, the least you could ask for in this life. It's not. I don't think that's asking for too much. It's genuinely not asking for too much. I will say, for all the conversations we're having with Blue Sky, every time I open it, they're mostly talking about how bad it is over at Twitter. So I can't wait for Blue Sky to develop its own culture independent of all the conversations about Twitter. But in the meantime, C.T. Jones, you're the best, pal. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. C.T. Jones writes about the internet and pop culture for Rolling Stone.